Welcome everyone. My name is Alexis Davis. I'm the social media manager here at RSDSA. I'm joined tonight by Jim Broach, Executive Vice President and Director of RSDSA. And tonight we have a few new things going on. So we're actually going to kick things off tonight with Eric Morale. He's the founder of Ride for Warriors, and he's going to tell us a little bit about Ride for Warriors before we bring on tonight's guest. So make sure that we're good to go. Eric, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you everybody for joining and listening in, and thank you Alexis and Jim for having me. I really appreciate it. Really excited to hear the rest of the talk. In the green room before, it was really interesting just to hear some stories, and excited to hear the full length talk. But yeah, so Ride for Warriors is a yearly campaign that I started in 2019, where I bike across the United States in order to raise money and awareness for complex regional pain syndrome. And I was lucky enough to have been connected to Jim, and so the money that we raise goes to RSDSA. This year our goal is $10,000. That was pre-COVID, so things have changed a little bit, but the goal has stayed the same. We're trying to stay positive, and yeah. So if anyone is interested in making a donation to RSDSA, so that Jim and the team can make more content like this and help with funding research, then I'm sure Alexis has a link and she'll throw that in the comments. Yeah, and other than that, I think that's really it. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to say.
Why don't you just tell why you're so passionate about raising money for us because of your sister?
Yeah, so my younger sister, she's 21 now, which is crazy for me to say. But she was diagnosed, or she wasn't diagnosed with CRPS originally. So when she was 15 was when symptoms first started appearing, and it took a couple years until she was actually diagnosed with CRPS. And that couple-year period was really frustrating because it was hard for us to continue our very close relationship because she'd become a different person. Her body gave out on her, and so hearing that. There hasn't been that much research, or that the research isn't well, seen amongst the masses, and that it's hard to get a diagnosis, really struck a chord with me. And I was like, well, how can I help make a change? And so fundraising is what I do for a profession. And so I thought fundraising is what I could do and help with for RSDSA. So yeah, that's how I got involved. And actually, today is the 1-year anniversary of last year's ending. I officially got home to Boston 1 year ago today after riding 1,700 miles and raising over $6,000 for RSDSA.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it was,
Eric, thank you so much. And no crashes, right?
No more crashes. Hopefully no more crashes.
He's healing from the recent crash. But give our love to your family, and especially your sister.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eric. If anyone has questions for him, wants to learn more about Ride for Warriors, I've dropped a few links into the chat, as well as his email address if you want to reach out, his QGIF page, all of that. So once again, thanks, Eric. We're always really appreciative of everything you're doing.
Not a problem. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. All righty, so now I'm going to bring on tonight's guest. So tonight we are speaking with Dr. Michael Cooney. So Dr. Cooney has been a leading provider of Calmare Therapy since 2011. He has successfully treated more than 1,000 patients from 20 countries. He is one of 7 certified Calmare Therapy providers in the U.S., and he specializes in treating early and late stage CRPS, shingles, post-surgical pain after chemo in children, teens, adults, seniors, and much more. He will also be joined tonight by a few of his patients, Laura, Austin, and Austin's mom, Isabel. Please remember that while the information that is shared here tonight is helpful, be sure to also consult a physician for personalized medical advice. I always want to remind you all of that. So Jim, is there anything that you would like to add before we let Dr. Cooney take things away?
I just have a brief disclaimer that I must say tonight. As most treatments for CRPS have not been subjected to controlled clinical trials because clinical trials are expensive. And as Dr. Brule told us in an earlier Facebook chat, most of the trials have been unsuccessful because it's a heterogeneous disease. Tonight he'll be talking about Calmare. His evidence is anecdotal, and it's not been studied in CRPS. And we don't endorse it or advocate it as a treatment for CRPS, but we've heard great things about Dr. Cooney, and we welcome him today.
Yes, definitely. So we will go ahead and bring on Dr. Cooney's patients tonight. So, all right. So tonight we have, I see Laura. Okay, so tonight we have Laura joining, and Austin is his mother. They're actually going to join us tonight on audio only mode. So we're not going to be able to see them, but you definitely will want to hear their story. So, Dr. Cooney, we will let you take it from here.
Thank you. Calmare therapy is a treatment that is originally intended to treat chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy. That's what it was designed for. And then what happened is they started to see that Calmare could treat other types of neuropathy, things such as shingles, diabetic neuropathy, things of that nature. And then when I first got involved in it, having seen so many people in pain, started looking into other areas. And my initial experience was that we had some younger patients with full body CRPS, Laura being one of them. And we looked at it, what was really transpiring with CRPS. And we came to realize that, as probably most of you know, that this is really a brain-based condition. And I liken it in many instances to phantom limb pain, whereby someone will have pain in a particular area or their full body, but mostly in a particular area. And there is no physiological reason for the pain. The phantom limb patient will complain of foot pain, but obviously they have no foot. Or the CRPS patient will complain of foot pain, but they will have no positive diagnostics, no MRIs, EMGs. They're all negative. So there's no physiological reason for the pain. What I believe is happening is that it's usually post-injury. And what develops is there's like a noxious stimulation that causes an elevation of things like nociception and input from the periphery, from the hand or the leg, and that affects the cortical area of the brain, and it causes an excessive sensitization or a neuroplasticity. And what we want to do is interrupt that sensitivity. I believe that there's a loop that develops that what we try and use is an electro or cutaneous electrostimulation. And one of the things that I developed was we started to place that electrical stimulation on what is called the dorsal horn. The dorsal horn is just to the side of the spine, excuse me, and it's where it transitions from peripheral nerve to central nerve. And the purpose is to try and get that no pain signal to go through that area to the brain. Now, I liken the Calmare to muscle memory or rope memory. The protocol is 10 visits. It's basically Monday to Friday, and it's the same wherever you go. This is being done at some of the top hospitals in the country right now. You have Mayo and Hopkins, and the military is using it. The VA has just authorized me to use it. So it's gaining momentum. But so what we're in trying to endeavor with that is break that pain loop or the gating mechanism, or get the gating mechanism to restart. And we've had tremendous success with it. The pain for most CRPS patients comes down dramatically, and the associated symptoms generally come down as much. To mention something, what Jim had said is, or inferred, is that there aren't any studies. And the interesting thing about it is that I was actually approached to do a study. And in order for a study to be valid, you need to have what's called the sham machine. So theoretically, you would have to treat 100 patients, and 50 would get the Calmare and 50 would get the sham machine. That's long and significantly involved to get involved in doing that. So the end game is that you have to, considering the fact that you can't diagnose this with anything objective, the MRIs, EMGs, the CAT scans, anything like that. So we pretty much use what's called the Budapest protocol. And what that is you determine that a patient has unremitting pain with no physiological reason for it. And then there are 10 or 12 associated symptoms, and all of the CRPS patients know about them. It's the color changes, hair loss, temperature changes, sweat, swelling, numbness, tingling, on and on. So that if you have, though, pretty much 4 or 5 of those associated symptoms, then we pretty much think that it's CRPS. We can't be 100% positive, and the concern I have, which is why I speak to every patient ahead of time, is that a CRPS patient that also has a neuritis is a very difficult CRPS patient to treat, because the pain signal is aberrant in CRPS, but the pain signal in neuritis, let's say you have a lower back pain or a shoulder pain, if you're getting that pain signal, it's very difficult for us to try and interrupt the CRPS pain signal, because they're kind of overlapping within the brain cells. It could be the glial cells, the synapses, the axons, whatever. But it's difficult to bypass the actual pain signal that is occurring within neuritis. There are a couple of other things that I do with the patients. We do some desensitization. We may do some mirror imaging or things like that. But the part of the problem I have with some of the approaches that are taken with CRPS is that they utilize heavy physical therapy. And in many instances, I think it's a difficult thing for the CRPS patient to do, because you may be creating a pain signal which reinforces that signal within the brain. The desensitization I use is it's minimal touch, usually on the bottom of the foot or the palm of the hand. And in that way, I'm using proprioception and the sensory nerves to tell the brain that there's no pain there. And it kind of reinforces what we're doing with the Calmare. The only contraindications for Calmare are maybe a pacemaker or a pain pump, patient with arrhythmias or stents, pregnancy or epilepsy are conditions that we really don't want to treat. Laura had mentioned earlier about coming off gabapentin. We have found in the Calmare community that gabapentin or any of the anti-seizure drugs, or for that matter, the antidepressants, seem to dull the pain center and make it more difficult for us to communicate to the brain. So we ask people to work with their physicians and try and get off the those particular medications. We do treat people that are on them, but only as a kind of a last resort kind of thing. And we let the patient know that in those instances, it may take longer to accomplish our goal of being pain-free, if possible. Laura, just to bring her on, treated with me, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, and we lost the audio on Laura. Are you there, Laura?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying it was 9 years ago.
9 years ago, Laura came in, and we just talked about the story a little earlier, but Laura had been through quite a barrier, quite a few treatments before coming to New Jersey from Indiana to treat with the Calmare. She actually signed herself out of a hospital because of a patient of mine had called her. I think it was a patient's mother, wasn't it?
Yes, another patient's mother had called. I believe it was your very first patient.
First CLPS patient, yeah.
Yes, and it was successful for her, and I got word of it. And I had CRPS for 3 years that had spread through multiple parts of my body. Like Dr. Cooney said, I had been admitted to the hospital for a chronic pain rehab program, tried all of the medications. The next step was looking at a spinal cord stimulator. And for me, that was really a scary idea because my CRPS was triggered from a foot surgery. So I really wanted to avoid having another surgery. And yeah, I discharged myself, went straight from Indiana to New Jersey, and I have been in remission since.
Great. And can we bring on Austin just to talk for a couple of minutes?
Hello?
Hi, Austin.
All right. Sorry I couldn't get the camera working.
That's all right.
My story basically is in August of 2017, I injured my foot playing football. And about a week later, I got surgery on it. And when I woke up from that surgery, I was in excruciating pain. It wasn't normal surgery pains. And then in, I think, mid-September is when they realized that I had CRPS. So I went to a pain doctor and got spinal nerve blocks. I got 11 of them. And he put me on a gabapentin and a depression pill. And after my 11th one, he said, let's take a month break. We'll do another nerve block. If that doesn't work, then we'll put the pump in your back. And my parents were definitely not for it. So they started looking all over the place. I did ketamine. I did quite a few treatments there. I think it was around 14 treatments I did there. And then after that, I did 2 stem cell treatments. Those stem cell treatments helped me out a lot. They were letting me feel my leg again. Still had a lot of pain. Was having a lot of trouble sleeping. I was doing a PT during that time, and it wasn't helping at all with that either. And I was still bedridden. I was sleeping on the couch most of the time. Had a lot of sweats and seizures. When we got in contact with Dr. Cooney, he let my parents know that I had to get off those medications. So we weaned myself off of that for 3 months, a little more than 3 months. And that was a lot of hard work just to do that, just getting off of those medications. But when I went to Dr. Cooney, my foot had no hair on it, was covered in basically these blisters, lesions. And when I got to him, it was about my second day when I started feeling a lot better. The pain was off. I didn't have to wear I wore a fuzzy sock with ketamine on it. And after his help, I didn't have to wear that ketamine sock or fuzzy sock anymore. I just started walking around with a cane again. And throughout time, I just didn't need the cane anymore. I basically went back to normal.
So this is Austin's mom. The 180 was definitely the Calmare. We got there with Austin on crutches. We left there no crutches. And we followed the instructions of 1 month no PT, which was hard because that's the opposite of what we had heard in the community was, do a lot of PT. So he just did rice treatment, put his foot in rice to desensitize, used a tennis ball, the fuzzy part of the tennis ball on his foot for a month. And then he started the PT and started to walk with no assistance. And he is now a college student living on as close of a normal life as he can. I'm not going to say it's back to where it was. Anybody with CRPS knows you always have some type of residual. And but the Calmare was definitely what got him into this remission. And, Dr. Cooney is our angel.
Okay. The basis of the treatment is to retrain the brain. And there's a comment on here that says, I don't believe there is no physiological reason. There is a physiological reason. And the physiological reason is generally from an injury that occurs. And the injury could be anything from a twisted ankle to a broken toe to I had a patient come to me with CRPS that got it from having her a pedicure where they clipped her cuticle too tight. So generally there's an injury. The problem, so that would be your physiological injury. The problem occurs within the brain where that loop just develops and it doesn't shut off. So what we're trying to do is basically retrain the brain using that, proprioception, using the desensitization, and trying to kind of treat it as if you were doing learning a physical activity or a mental activity. You don't learn to ride a bike in one day. You don't learn your multiplication tables in one day. You have to do it over and over, and that's kind of what we have to do with the Calmare. That's the reason that it's kind of day after day, so that we can retrain the brain. The protocol again is generally 10 visits. I've had people that have finished up in 4 and 5. That's rare. I've had people finish up in 8. I've had people that have had to come for 20 visits. But we don't continue going unless we're seeing progress. So if a person after 10 visits, and let's say 8, 9, and 10, they're going down at maybe a half a pain point at a time, as long as they're progressing, we'll try and continue to go. If 8, 9, and 10, the pain level is stayed at a 3, we'll stop, because 3 may be the best we're going to get. But as most of you know, if you're at a pain level of 7 or 8, a 3, you can function. You can go through life. Your quality of life will improve dramatically. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. People ask me about, does it always go away? Laura is not the most common example. I would say it's a small percentage of people, maybe in the 20-25% area, where it will go into remission. That's not the most common. So in many instances, people will have to come back for boosters. I tell people for the most
part. And I just wanted to clarify about my case too. I did come back 2 or 3 times throughout the next year for booster treatments. And then after the booster treatments, I was in full remission. But right after my first treatment, I considered myself to be a partial remission.
Okay. That's the case in point. I think you came back, and as I tell people, if the pain starts again, don't let it get up to a 7. Try and get in for the booster treatments at a 3 or a 4, because then you'll only require 1 or 2 or maybe 3 booster treatments to get it back down. I don't know how many boosters you came for. I think you only came for one time.
Yeah, so I ended my treatment in July. I know I came back just for one again in like November, and then another in the spring that were maybe 3 sessions.
Right.
So boosters were never, ever a full treatment again.
Right.
And like Dr. Cooney said, it was so important to get it while the number was still low, and to be very diligent about not letting it get out of control. And my pain just went away. So I guess really immediately in the first session, I remember I started crying, and I think Dr. Cooney was very concerned something was wrong, but it was really just a relief. It was a relief I hadn't felt. I had forgotten what it felt like to have that little of a pain. But anyway, once it got very low, it just was like going down stair steps. It just continued to lessen and lessen after each booster, and then that was it.
Right. It was interesting to go back to what Austin was talking about. I do tell people generally now not to do anything after the treatment. And the reason for that is I call it my black eye theory. And what that means is that if you get a black eye, you have pain, you have discoloration, you have swelling, and you generally 2 days later, the pain will be gone. But if you look in the mirror, you still have the swelling, you still have the discoloration. And what that points out is that the absence of pain does not mean that all of the healing has occurred. So I kind of emphasize, don't do anything for 2 weeks after the treatment, so that when you restart, you don't interrupt the healing process. Okay, so Austin did it for a month, but it was, it probably was best for him. The other thing that Jim had asked me about was certification. Certification means that you've done not only the treatments, but you've done case studies and submitted the case studies. At the time I did it to Italy, to Dr. Marineo over in Rome, who was the developer of the equipment. And after you have done X amount, I don't even remember the exact amount, but after you have done so many case studies, they certify you. So that's what the certification is about. Which leads me into again to the provider dependency. I think it's important to understand that if you're going to have Calmare therapy, I would suggest that you go to a provider that does the treatment. I personally do every treatment, and I feel that that's extremely important for a number of reasons, primarily because there may be changes that occur with the patient during the treatment. And if a tech or a PT is doing the treatment under the guidance of the doctor, they can't make changes to the protocol. Whereas I can design the protocol based on the responses I'm getting. And there are certain things you look for right away. You're looking for reduction in pain as soon as they're on the machine. You're looking for movement along the nerve pathway, telling us that we are getting some activity along the nerve. And it's just a sense that you have of what the patient is feeling and what the communication is. Because without that communication, I can't know what areas I have to use or use the protocols for. Okay. The one thing that I wanted to tell anybody in the office, one of the things we do is, as we're seeing tonight with Laura and Austin, we do what we call the patient-to-patient program. Someone will contact us, and of course, everybody is skeptical for the most part, because most of my patients have had Laura's story or Austin's story where they've had the medications and the nerve blocks, and in some instances, the spinal cord stimulators or the ketamine. They've had all that, and they've been frustrated, and they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So they're anxious, and especially with this, because it's not a well-known treatment protocol. So we do the patient-to-patient program so that they can talk to someone. We try and set them up with a patient that has a similar condition so that they can be more comfortable and understand what the treatment is and know that it's non-invasive and no side effects and it's not uncomfortable, it's not painful. The worst thing that can happen is actually nothing, which is not the case with a lot of the other treatments that are out there right now. And like Laura had said earlier, we would we want people to gain their quality of life back, and it's important to us to do it in a way that's non-invasive. Trying to see what other questions I might have here.
I just wanted to speak a little bit about what it feels like. I know that's a question I get a lot. If you have ever had a TENS unit, it feels very similar. However, this treatment is nothing like a TENS unit. They're very, very different. However, that is the best comparison I can give you to how it feels. So you're definitely feeling something, but you're not feeling pain. And again, that was so important to me to not feel any pain during a treatment, because you have CRPS, you know, more pain is more trauma, which could mean a spread or increasing your current pain tolerance. So I just wanted to share that's not a concern. And I feel like most patients would also say the same about that.
Right. Austin, can you tell us what it felt like to have the treatment for you?
Yes, I can. Sorry, they muted me. It does feel like a TENS unit. Just being an athlete my whole high school career, that's what it feels like, and it's not painful at all. That was the crazy part about it. The only thing that was painful for me is when we tried it, we put it on my foot, which was the most sensitive area. So just having that on my foot was painful, but just after 10 minutes of having the treatment on there, I almost had a smile on my face just because the pain, it felt like it was just lifted from my shoulders. Like I felt like I could go run outside. Like every time I got on that machine, it was just incredible.
I had that same feeling, Austin, and I feel like Dr. Cooney has said that before, and other patients, if you want to speak about that. It seems like most people know early on whether or not this is going to work for them. Do you feel like you've seen that?
Yeah, definitely, because when I was there was another patient there, and her first day, we were talking to each other, and I was like, yeah, I felt a little bit. There wasn't too much that changed for me my first day. So then he was like, let's come back tomorrow and try different placements on your foot, because maybe it's not where it broke, but maybe it's lower underneath. So we tried that, and I was talking to the lady because it was my second day there and it's her first day. And I said, if it doesn't work today, come back tomorrow and just try different placements and it'll work. And later that week I saw her there and she was like, yeah, we tried it a little bit lower and it worked perfect. Like I almost have no pain. Like she didn't come in with a cane that day, which was crazy because I didn't realize her without the cane. And then she was like, hey, how's it going for you? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's going great. And I'm like, where's your cane? She's like, I don't need it anymore. So I was like, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I just think that's so encouraging as a patient. You're not going to, invest all of your time and money to then find out 2 weeks later it doesn't work. You seem to know early on, and you can choose to stay with it or, choose that it's not for you. But I just think that's awesome. I can't think of any other treatment I've had, one that worked, but one that also, decreased my pain so quickly.
Yeah, same here, because with the nerve blocks on my back, my parents were just doing it because it let me sleep for 3 hours straight. It wasn't me waking up in a seizure or something like that because of the pain. They were just like, oh, it's working for 3 hours. Well, maybe next time it'll work for 4. Mm-hmm. Like they were just hoping that I could just get a little bit more sleep and a little bit less pain. And same thing with the ketamine. The ketamine would let me sleep longer, but when I'd wake up, I'd be in pain. Where Calmare, it was when I put it on my foot, I'd be like, oh my God, this is great. And then we'd take it off and I could feel the pain level wasn't as high as it was before. And every time we did it, it just got lower and lower. And it was incredible.
And I have to say, when we got there, Austin's lesions on his foot were pretty concerning. We were very worried about infection. And those lesions were clearing up within the first week, and they were almost gone by the time we were done with the Calmare treatment.
I saw a question here I wanted to address. Someone was asking specifically if I had pain when I was standing, and the answer was definitely yes before the treatment.
Yeah.
Also, yes, when I was still kind of working through the period where I needed boosters. But I guess I just really want to articulate, that this worked for every type of pain. I'm sure you all know what it is, but I had the combination of the burning, the stabbing, the sensitivity to touch. I would also feel like I was getting electrocuted. Sometimes the jolts were so strong. If I was standing, it would literally bring me to my knees, knock me over. This fixed all of that. And also in the question was, you don't necessarily want to go back for a little bit, but I guess to echo what Dr. Cooney said, you've got to get this under control while you still can. And for me, I was on a mission of 0. I think a lot of people stop at 2 or 3, but I was committed to finding that 0 level. So that's personally why I chose to go back for boosters so often. Or I guess I should say as quickly as I did.
Okay, one of the things I'll touch on is you were talking about, both of you were talking about getting relief right away. Generally, what we do is if a patient treats for 4 visits, 3 visits, and we don't see any real relief, we'll discontinue. And I will try and come up with some sort of recommendation to which way to go with it. There are a number of different ways that you can go with it. The other thing I wanted to touch on, what Laura was saying, she said it feels like a TENS, and that was the thing that they said that this was nothing more than a TENS machine early on. It's since been given a patent, and if you know about patents, if there's anything on the market, it's nothing like a TENS. A TENS basically is treating on a particular area of injury, and you could be using it for exercising, for reducing inflammation, for relaxation. With the Calmare we use, and one thing I should say with the TENS is that it's a single current that's being used. With the Calmare, you're using 16 different algorithms. And the important thing about that is as the person is treating, no one sequence of those algorithms is ever repeated. And the importance of that is that the brain in many instances can learn to accommodate to a treatment. It accommodates to drugs all the time. And what the Calmare does is not allow the brain to continue to recognize with the messaging that it's receiving over the C fibers. And by altering the sequence, the brain is actually the perfect explanation of it is the name is called scrambler therapy, because you're trying to scramble that message going to the brain.
Michael, may I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Just a couple questions. A lot of people have spinal cord stimulator implants. They're worried about what happens. Does it have to be deplanted? And also, people are concerned about costs too. And
okay,
financing for that.
The spinal cord stimulator. I've treated a lot of people with spinal cord stimulators. What happens is they cannot have them on. If you usually have a magnet or a control button that can turn it off. And luckily, in many instances, people will treat 1 or 2 times and they don't need to turn it back on again. So that's a benefit. The cost of the program is $3,500, and that includes the consultation, the exam, and the 10 treatments. That's everything.
And could you get care credit for that, the non-interest financing?
Care Credit does financing for this. There are some insurance companies that do pay for it. You have United Healthcare in some instances pays. Blue Cross Blue Shield Anthem policies, which are pretty much people from the Midwest. I'm working with the VA now. I'm treating some VA patients. So we're hoping that more and more insurance companies come online. We're trying to convince them that, given the history of the CRPS community in general, it makes sense to try this first, because the cost to the insurance company of the doctor visits, the medications, the ketamine, the spinal cord stimulator, I mean, you could be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if we can get patients early, when they're diagnosed right away, it can save the insurance companies tremendous amounts of money. So, but it's still being approached as a investigatory study. I mean, there are studies that have been done on other conditions utilizing the Calmare that have been very positive. You have Mayo and Hopkins that have done studies. And I mean, even recently, what's the cancer hospital in Texas? I can't think of the name of that. MD Anderson. MD Anderson started using this now.
Michael, what's the youngest aged patient you have treated?
Probably 8 years old, but it's very tough with young kids like that, because I think I had mentioned earlier that a lot of the success that I have is based on the communication with the patient during the treatment. And with the younger kids, the 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-olds, it's very difficult to communicate with them. So they're difficult cases for sure. Once they get up into the 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old, that's much easier to deal with. The oldest patient I've had was 92. So imagine that.
Yeah. Alexis, any questions that you see in the feed that we should be asking?
Yes, sorry, I just hit the mute and unmute button a few too many times there. So I've had a few questions. Jim did jump in and ask a few of them, but there was a question earlier about the therapy and treating the full body. Like, is it, for people who have CRPS in just one area, how does it work with those who have CRPS full body?
Okay. As I had stated earlier, the CRPS patient usually begins with some sort of a trauma. And it's important during the history, to determine what that initial injury was. And what we do is we treat that particular area. Let's say, for argument's sake, your initial injury was you dislocated your knee. Well, what we would do, we would treat the knee first. And that's when, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Sometimes that may not be the initial injury, and you might have to move to another area. Like Austin said, we had to move to the bottom of his foot in order to achieve some results. And sometimes I had one of my favorite ones was a gentleman from Austin, Texas, that his picture was there as a cowboy. He had the hat, the belt, the buckle, the boots, the whole thing. But he was in his 70s. And he came in with CRPS in his buttocks, and it circled around into his thigh. And we treated him. I treated him for maybe 2 days, and I didn't get any change, no results. And interestingly enough, I started talking to him, and I said, you're a cowboy. You never got thrown from a horse. You never got kicked by a horse. No other injuries in your entire life. And we sat and talked for a little while. And finally he turned to me and he said, when I was in high school, I broke my ankle. So I said, the brain has a memory. And there may be a secondary injury that caused this to reactivate. And sure enough, I treated him maybe 10 minutes, utilizing the ankle as the primary injury, and the allodynia in the thigh went away while the treatment was on. It came back a little bit when we were done. But that's my point, is that you have to figure out where the initial cause came from.
Michael, a lot of people have been injured at work and they're covered by workers' comp insurance. Have you had success in getting them to pay for Calmare?
Well, generally, what you have to do in workers' compensation is the patient has to go to their case manager. And in the experience I've had is that the case managers have no idea what this is. So I have the case manager, or I have the patient tell the case manager to call me. I would say in about 50% of the cases, we're successful in getting the workers' comp to cover it.
That's wonderful.
And it's usually because the case manager is throwing their hands up because they've been everywhere like a lot of the other patients. They've been to the medications, and they've been to nerve blocks and etc. So the case manager says, we'll try this.
Michael, are you near your machine that you could show it?
No, I can't.
Do you have a photo of it? People are wondering what it looked like.
Here, let me see. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. That's the machine. It's got 5 sets of leads coming off, and there's a positive and negative on each of those. And see if I have a bigger picture. No.
That's fine. So people get an indication.
Yeah, it looks. It's a therapy machine. It's nothing. It's maybe 3 feet wide. And a foot tall, but it works very well.
Yeah.
I see a few people mentioning, and Austin also sent me a chat and wanted to also see if you could discuss a little bit about reminding people about being off of pain medication, for the treatment. If you could just talk a little bit more about that, because it seems like we have some people who may have been a little late who want to hear about that as well.
Okay, the only medications that we would like you to be off are the anticonvulsants and the antidepressants. I've had people come in with every sort of pain medication, the opioids, morphine, methadone. We can treat with those medications. We find it difficult to treat, though, with the Neurontin and gabapentin, Cymbalta, Lyrica, things like that, or as I said, the antidepressants.
That's great.
I had another question, and if you have any questions, everyone watching, please leave those in the chat because we are beginning to wrap up. But we did have another question that someone asked about arachnoiditis that she has been asking over and over. She sent a message, so I wanted to make sure that I asked about that.
That's an interesting one because, ironically, I think it was 2 years ago, I sent out a blurb because I wanted to look into arachnoiditis because of the nature of the condition. When you're talking about the effect upon the covering of the spine like that, I was interested to see if the Calmare could affect it. And what I did was I offered to do, I forget how many patients, I think I wanted to get like 6 patients with arachnoiditis to do my own little study. And I didn't get anybody to take it. So I don't know about arachnoiditis. I've not treated it.
Well, if you want subjects, I think some will come to Jersey.
Okay. We can work that out. There may be, maybe I'll decide. Right now, I don't have the openings to start doing, a study like that.
Yeah.
But
People were asking about your waiting list.
I'm generally about a month out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And could you say percentage-wise of the difference that you make in how many people really make? Not everyone's going to go into remission like Laura.
I would say 75% have relief. But and that's of the people that go through the 10 treatments. When I say that, if I get someone that after 3 or 4 treatments, I stop, that's because I don't believe it's going to help them. Mm-hmm. And the advantage of this is that I don't make that decision. I let the patients make the decision. They know better than I what that pain level is. They know if it's coming down. They know if the allodynia is getting better. They know if the numbness is improving. Although I don't like to use numbness because in many instances that could take a long time to go away. But they know based on the associated symptoms.
Alrighty. Well, Laura, do you have anything you would like to add?
I just want to give a quick recommendation if anybody does try this from a patient perspective. Bring a notebook, bring something for your stay, and really journal every night what you're feeling pain-wise. Like Dr. Cooney said, that patient communication piece is so important. He will tailor the treatment to what you're feeling in your specific case, but what you're experiencing will change every day. And I know for me, it was just overwhelming, and it was hard to keep up with all of those quick changes. So I would suggest that. Also, again, I'm from Indiana. I went to New Jersey for this treatment, and I called around to different hotels and just explained what I was doing, and actually got a really great discount for a 2-week stay and like an awesome suite. So I know that people are willing to work with you if you explain your situation, and Dr. Cooney's office is also fabulous at helping people make those travel accommodations.
Well, we have on our website a listing of hotels that give discounts for my patient. And one in particular actually runs a shuttle to the office every day. Good. So that's good. But I wanted to show you, Laura was talking about notating what is done every day. I don't know. Can you see this book, Peter's Foot? I don't know if you can see it. Peter's Foot is a book that is actually available on Amazon. And what it is a diary of treatment of a fellow that had CRPS for, I think, 17 years. And him and his better half diaried every treatment. They photographed the treatments. They showed his improvement as days went on, and then they published the book, and it's available on Amazon, Peter's Foot. So it's important to have that information. I have another patient that did a video log of her son. Well, the mother did it of her son, and that she videotaped every treatment. So that was interesting.
We have some Calmare listings across the country, but how do we find the other 6 certified clinicians that are?
You go to Calmare Therapeutics, and it has a listing of providers by region of the country.
Great, thank you.
And then Austin and Isabel, did you have any last words that you wanted to share? Any other statements? Make sure that
I would say to anybody out there that's questioning it, you got nothing to lose other than money, and I'm sure you're spending money on other treatments that aren't working. So give this a try. It works. If it works for you, it could be life-changing.
Yeah, I was 17 when my injury happened, and luckily it was only about 1.5 years of my life that was taken away. I'm happy that it was just a year and a half. I couldn't imagine if you guys have been doing it longer. I mean, I still have my whole life ahead of me, and I'm already in remission. I mean, of course I have these little pains here and there, but it's nothing compared to just being laying on a bed or on a couch all day. You guys got to try it out. Do some reading, do some research. I was very lucky enough to have parents that did research for me and found Dr. Cooney and a bunch of different plans to help me out and basically become normal again. So I really hope everybody finds something that can help them out and lower their pain.
Austin, were you able to go back to football?
No, I kind of let go of football, but I'm now pursuing to become a either Border Patrol agent or DEA agent.
Wow.
Good for you.
That's great.
I would just echo that. It took me several years to hear of Calmare, and I just think all the time, oh my gosh, imagine if that was like the first thing I tried. It would have been years of suffering taken away. I had spent so much money on other treatments, and you know what you said, like you have nothing to lose. You really don't, because this isn't going to hurt you. It's not going to make you worse. You just have to go and try for yourself. And that was literally what I said to myself when I discharged myself from the hospital to try this. What else do I have to lose? Nothing else had worked so far. Like, this was my golden ticket. And I just encourage every CRPS patient to, you know, try it if you have the ability to do so, because it saved my life. I was down a really, really bad path. I never imagined I'd be as healthy as I am now. And I owe it all to this treatment and Dr. Cooney.
Same here.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to thank Dr. Cooney for being here. It's been a number of years that I'm so glad we've done this. And Laura and Austin's mother, thank you for being here. I just want to take a moment and just talk about our next presentation that's going to happen. When? Alexis, what day?
Wednesday, July 29th.
Okay. And we're not going to do something about healthcare medical professional. We're going to have a CRPS warrior who has CRPS full body, and he was a CEO for a healthcare center for healthcare concern for 35 years. Developed CRPS, had to retire, and he was a consultant, but he also wrote a thriller that won a mystery award, and he's writing a sequel, and the number one character is going to have CRPS. So he's going to share about his journey. He's going to talk about the development of the character, and also about that the book, if you purchase it, will get some of the proceeds. So, and he's really a thoughtful, smart man, and it's good.
Right. Well, Jim, I wanted to say thank you for doing this, and you guys have been doing this for a few years, and you're doing a great job in disseminating information to an underserved community, for sure.
Without a doubt.
Thank you for your efforts.
All right, so everybody.
Well, definitely just want to thank you for this information. This has been amazing. I hope everyone has learned a lot. Definitely want to thank Dr. Cooney's team for also being in the comments and responding to a lot of your questions. So of course you can reach out to him. And as always, we will have this video pinned to the top of our Facebook timeline until our next live, so you can find it for the next few weeks. But of course, it will also live on our page forever. And we are also going to add it to YouTube, so you can rewatch it as often as you would like. Send it to friends and family, send it to a physician. You will have access to this. Of course, if you have any questions, if you need a support group, if you're looking for a new physician, you need anything from us. Usually I would hold up a mask right now, but my mask is in my purse because I wore it today when I went out. I do love my RSDSA mask.
We have baseball caps.
There's so many things in the shop. And thank you for everyone.
Kayaking.
That's right. I'm wearing it tomorrow.
Yes,
so
thank you.
Safe, wear a mask, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks. And God bless you all. And thanks everyone for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Bye.
Yes, thank you.